My name is Cynthia Trevino. I am 28, and for a long time I believed I had finally found the kind of love that would last. William Wharton and I had been together for 3 years, when everything started to shift slowly at first, like a shadow moving across a room, and then all at once swallowing everything we had built. When I first met William, he struck me as the steady kind of man who could anchor a room without ever raising his voice. He worked in IT at a mid-sized tech company downtown. I worked in marketing for a boutique agency across the city. My life before him was a mix of creative chaos and ambition content, planning client meetings, late-night editing sessions, and weekend brunches with friends. His world was calmer, more structured. Somehow the contrast between us felt like a perfect fit. I brought lightness into his life. He brought peace into mine. We moved in together in our third year. It was William's idea. We found a 2-bedroom apartment between our jobs, a place with just enough sunlight and just enough space for 2 people who genuinely thought they were building a future. I gave up the second bedroom, the one I'd envisioned, as a small content studio, so he could have a dedicated workspace for his projects. I didn't mind. Seeing him excited made me happy. We split rent equally, but I often covered groceries and utilities without thinking twice. I believe relationships weren't about keeping score. In the beginning, everything felt easy. We cooked dinner together, stayed up too late watching shows, whispered future plans in the dark, and laughed at our own private jokes. I thought it was the foundation of a life that would only grow stronger. But then the small shifts began. William started going out after work more often. Team dinners, celebrations, coworker birthdays I had never heard of. His texts slowed down on those nights, always accompanied by vague explanations. Meetings ran late. Coworkers insisted he join. He didn't want to be rude. I didn't want to be the insecure partner, so I let it go each time. Still, I noticed a pattern I couldn't ignore. The more he went out, the more distant he became. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, I gently asked, "Everything okay lately? You've been really busy." He barely looked up from his phone. "It's called having a social life, Cynthia. You should try it." The words stung more than I expected. William had never spoken to me like that before. I told myself he was just tired or overwhelmed, but deep down I felt something shifting beneath us. A few days later, for the first time in years, he mentioned his ex-girlfriend, Lena Bradford. We were eating together when he casually said, "Guess who messaged me today?" I looked up surprised. "Who?" "Lena," he replied, twirling his fork like it meant nothing. "She saw my latest post and said it made her laugh." I forced a smile. "Lena, as in your ex-girlfriend?" "Yeah," he said, shrugging. "We just caught up. It's not a big deal." I tried to keep my voice even. "Didn't you two end on bad terms?" "She apologized," he said. "People grow. We're adults. It's nice talking to someone who remembers who I used to be." His words tasted sour in my mouth, but I said nothing. There was a part of me that wanted to ask what was wrong with who he was now, but the fear of sounding jealous kept me quiet. Over the next few weeks, William's phone was always face down. He angled the screen away from me whenever a notification appeared. Sometimes he smiled at messages he refused to explain. He'd glance at me, then quickly look away as if caught doing something he shouldn't. One night I walked past the bedroom while he was on a call. His voice was soft, warm in a way I hadn't heard in months. I caught the tail end of his laugh, light, playful, unmistakably intimate. "Stop it," he said on the call. "You always knew how to make me laugh." When he noticed me standing in the doorway, he jolted eyes-wide guilt, flickering across his expression. "Who was that?" I asked quietly. "Just a friend," he said, quickly, too quickly. "Cynthia, don't sneak up on me like that." "I didn't sneak up," I replied. The door was open. He said nothing, and neither did I. That night I lay beside him while he scrolled through his phone in the dark, smiling at messages only he saw. It was the first night I realized he wasn't really beside me anymore, not in the way that mattered. The next day, I tried to bring it up without accusation. "Was that Lena you were talking to last night?" His expression changed instantly, sharp and defensive. "Wow. Really? We're doing this." "I'm just asking," I said. "You've been talking to her a lot, hiding your phone, going out more." He scoffed. "Stop acting like you own me." My breath caught. I never said anything about ownership. I just asked who you were on the phone with. "And that's exactly the problem," he snapped. "You think you get to monitor who I talk to. I'm allowed to have friends, Cynthia." "I didn't say you weren't," I replied quietly. "But when your ex is calling every night, it's fair to ask what's going on." He laughed bitterly. "You're paranoid. Maybe that's why talking to someone else feels easier." His words sliced through me. Later that night, he climbed into bed as if nothing had happened. Are you mad at me? He asked, voice soft again. I'm confused, I said. I don't know what I did to make you think I'm trying to control you. He sighed loudly. You're making everything heavy again. You always do this. And with that, he turned away, scrolling through his phone while I stared at the ceiling. That was the moment I knew something inside him had already left. I kept trying for another week, cooking his favorite meals, suggesting date nights, small gestures to remind him we still existed as a couple, but he barely looked up from his phone. One afternoon, while having lunch with a close friend who had met William a few times, she hesitated before saying, Cynthia, I don't want to assume, but I think I saw William yesterday at Cafe Luna, and he wasn't alone. My heart slowed. Who was he with? A woman, she said softly. She looked like his ex, Lena. My chest tightened, but I nodded. Thank you for telling me. I went home early that day. When William walked in around 8, humming, acting normal, I stood in the kitchen waiting. You were at Cafe Luna yesterday, I said calmly. With Lena. His entire expression hardened. You're unbelievable. Just answer the question. Yes, I was, he snapped. She needed to talk. I didn't think I needed your permission to get coffee. You don't, I said. But you've been lying about it for weeks. Oh my God, he said, rolling his eyes. You're so dramatic. I didn't tell you because you'd react exactly like this. You've been hiding calls meeting your ex in secret, and I'm the problem, I asked. You're insecure, he said sharply. You suffocate me. And just like that, the man who once held me, like I was the safest place in the world, was gone. He walked into the bedroom that night, and the next night he didn't come home at all. William did not come home that night, or the night after, or the one after that. Each morning, I woke up to the same cold emptiness beside me, the imprint of a body that hadn't been there, the faint smell of his cologne fading from our sheets. He sent short-clipped messages, staying with a friend. Need space. Don't make this a big deal. But I knew he wasn't with some friend. I knew exactly where he was. With Lena Bradford. By the third night, the silence stopped feeling like distance and started feeling like evidence. Evidence of choices he was making in real time. Evidence that I was no longer a part of his picture. When he finally returned on Friday morning, he looked different. He walked in wearing a crisp jacket I had never seen before, his hair freshly styled, carrying a faint trace of a perfume that was not mine. He moved through the apartment like a guest, humming lightly as he opened the fridge. Are we going to have another fight? He asked casually. Or can we be adults about this? I stared at him, stunned by his nonchalance. You disappeared for 3 days, I said evenly. No explanation, no call, no consideration. He shut the fridge door a little too loudly. Cynthia, stop being intense. You always make everything heavy. I needed space, that's all. You left this relationship without saying the words, I replied. You can at least admit that. He crossed his arms. Oh my God, you're so dramatic. You don't own me. I'm allowed to take some time. I nodded slowly. You're right, I said. I don't own you. For a moment, he blinked like he hadn't expected the calm in my voice. I turned toward the bedroom and began opening drawers. What are you doing? He asked, his tone shifting. I'm giving you what you wanted, I said quietly. Space. He stepped forward. Cynthia, stop. You're being ridiculous. I'm not angry, I said, folding my clothes. I just don't see a reason to stay where I'm not wanted. He scoffed. This is so dramatic. We just had a disagreement. No, I said, zipping my suitcase. We stopped being a we when you started hiding who you were with. His jaw-dropped eyes flashing with something bitter. You're so fragile, Cynthia. No wonder I felt trapped. I paused. His words didn't pierce me the way they might have a month ago. Instead, something in me felt strangely steady, almost cold. You're free now, I said simply. I carried my suitcase to the door. He didn't follow. He didn't call my name. He didn't reach out. He just let me leave exactly the way he'd left me emotionally weeks before. By the time I reached my car, the only sound was the echo of my own footsteps. The same apartment that once felt like a home had turned into a shell the moment I realized I had been the only one fighting to keep us alive. I drove straight to my sister's place. She opened the door without asking any questions, pulling me into a hug, so tight it made something inside me finally crack. For the next few days, I slept on her couch, my phone quiet beside me, except for one message from William late that night. You're really doing this. I didn't reply. The next morning, I sent my final text. I'm moving out. I'll cover my half of the rent until the lease ends. After that, it's yours. I left my key on the counter. No response, no call, nothing. And somehow that silence was the clearest closure I could have asked for. The first week after leaving him was quiet, eerily so. I woke up without the familiar tension in my chest, without wondering what lie I would be fed that day. I went to work, kept my head down, and let myself breathe for the first time in months. The quiet was strange, but it was also healing. William didn't message again for days. I wasn't checking my phone constantly anymore. I was learning how to exist without his chaos vibrating through the walls of my life. On the 5th day, the messages started. Can we talk? I think we both overreacted. I miss you. I stared at the last one longer than the others before putting my phone screen down. I said nothing. Silence, I realize, can be a language too. A few days after that, the tone changed. You're being childish. Ignoring me won't fix anything. You think you're better than me now? I almost laughed. This was the William I had come to know in the final months, the man who believed the world owed him comfort, even when he burned down everything around him. I didn't respond. As I focused on work again, really focused, I started regaining parts of myself I didn't even know I'd lost. Without the emotional drain of wondering where William was or who he was with, my mind felt sharper. I completed projects ahead of schedule. I volunteered for new initiatives. I stayed late, not because I was avoiding going home, but because I genuinely enjoyed what I was doing again. 6 weeks after I left, my manager called me into his office. We're creating a new operations lead position, he said. You were the first person I thought of. Are you interested? I didn't hesitate. Yes, absolutely. 2 weeks later, I was promoted. The raise was significant, life-changing in a way that finally gave me freedom, not just emotionally, but financially. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment in a nicer part of town, a bright place with clean walls, soft lighting, and quiet mornings, a place entirely my own. My sister helped me move. When she asked, "Are you doing okay?" I answered honestly. "I am," I said, for the first time in a very long time. One evening, as we unpacked boxes together, she hesitated. "Do you think William will try to come back?" I shrugged. "Maybe, but it doesn't matter anymore." She nodded. "You finally look like yourself again." I smiled, and for the first time I felt it too. From that night on, I decided I wouldn't let anyone twist me into a version of myself I didn't recognize. Not again. Not ever. Life without William Wharton felt strangely light, as if someone had finally lifted a weight I'd unknowingly been carrying for years. I didn't realize how much space his chaos had occupied in my mind until it was gone. My new apartment became a sanctuary, a place where the air wasn't thick with suspicion, where my nights weren't spent waiting for a key turning in the lock or a phone lighting up with half-hidden lies. For the first time in months, I woke up rested. Work felt purposeful again. Anytime I felt my thoughts drifting toward William, I pulled them back and focused on the life I was building. My promotion opened doors I didn't know existed. More responsibility, more stability, more respect. My manager trusted me. My teammates sought my opinion. I felt valued, something I hadn't felt at home with William in a long time. But even with the peace I'd found, the universe seemed unwilling to let William fade quietly. 2 weeks after settling into my new place, the messages started again. Can we talk? I think we both misunderstood each other. I miss you. Please say something. I didn't answer. I didn't even open half of them. Silence became my boundary, my protection, my liberation. After several days without a response, his tone shifted. You're being childish. Fine, ignore me. Clearly you never cared. You're still the same cold, passive person who made me feel trapped. I stared at that one, letting it sit in the space between who I had been with him and who I was becoming without him. Then I turned my phone over and went to bed. A month passed. I threw myself fully into my new role at work, without the emotional drain of William's unpredictability. I completed projects early, earned praise from upper management, and earned a surprising amount of admiration from colleagues who had never noticed me before. Not because I changed, but because I finally had space to breathe. It was around this time that mutual friends started reaching out. A college friend sent me a screenshot of one of William's posts, something cryptic about toxic people and finding himself again. Another friend mentioned he'd quit his job suddenly, apparently saying he needed to pursue his passion projects full-time. I didn't ask for details, I didn't want them. But it was becoming painfully clear William's life wasn't flourishing the way mine was. It was unraveling. 2 months after I moved out, I received a message from Josh, a mutual friend from our college circle. Dude, sorry, Cynthia just saw William at North Sidebar. He's having a full meltdown. Thought you should know. I stared at the message for a long moment. Not out of worry, not out of hope either. Just a quiet acknowledgement that his story was continuing with or without my involvement. I put my phone away and moved on with my evening. 2 days later, the inevitable happened. William messaged me at 2:03 a.m. It was a long, rambling confession, too emotional, too unfiltered, too late. Cynthia, you were right about everything. Lena played me. She had someone else the whole time. I found out tonight when he showed up at her apartment. She told him I was just some guy from work. I'm so stupid. I left you for someone who didn't even care if I existed. I don't know what to do. Please. I need someone to talk to. I need you. I'm sorry. I read it once, closed my eyes, and then, because I knew it was the only way to protect my peace, I deleted the message without replying. The next morning, there were 3 more messages waiting for me. Cynthia, please. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm not okay. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Just talk to me. Please. Again, I did nothing. You can love someone deeply and still understand that responding would only reopen wounds you spent months stitching shut. A week later, fate played a cruel trick on both of us. I was at a small cafe near my new apartment with my sister when I saw him. William. He was sitting alone in the corner, staring at his phone with exhausted eyes. Dark circles bruised the skin under them. His clothes looked wrinkled, lived in, like he'd slept in them. His hair was unkempt, nothing like the freshly styled version of him that had walked home after his 3-day disappearance. He didn't see me at first, but when he finally looked up, his entire body froze. His lips parted, almost trembling, before he stood up slowly and approached my table. Cynthia, he said softly. My sister glanced at me, instinctively protective. I gave her a small nod, and she stepped outside to give us space. Hi, I replied, keeping my voice polite but detached. How have you been? He asked quietly. Good, I said simply. He swallowed hard. I could tell he was hoping for something more nostalgia warmth, a hint of the woman who used to wait up late for him, hoping he'd come home. But that woman was gone. Cynthia... He looked down, twisting the cup in his hands. Things haven't been good for me. I'm not doing great. I didn't respond. I wasn't there to comfort him. He took a shaky breath. Lena. She wasn't who I thought she was. I thought she and I had something real. She told me things I wanted to hear, and I believed her. She lied to me, used me, made me feel like I was finally someone she wanted. My silence made him uneasy. And then she threw me away, he whispered. Like I was nothing. I nodded once. I'm sorry that happened. He blinked, surprised by my tone. It wasn't cruel or sarcastic. It was simply factual. That's it, he asked. Just, you're sorry. What do you want me to say? I asked calmly. I don't know, he whispered. Maybe that you understand. That you forgive me. I exhaled softly. I do forgive you. His eyes widened, hope flickering for a split second. But that doesn't mean I want you back in my life. That faint flame died instantly. He looked away, blinking rapidly. I thought we had something real. We did, I said. But you decided it wasn't enough. He wiped his eyes, embarrassed. I made a mistake. A huge one. People make mistakes, I said. And people face consequences. Before he could answer, my sister reappeared holding 2 coffees. I stood up. I hope things get better for you, I said. I mean that. But I'm not the person who can help you anymore. William nodded slowly. Tears slipping down his face now. I'm glad you're okay, Cynthia, he whispered. Thank you, I said. Then I walked away, leaving him there, small, hunched over, and finally facing the emptiness he had created for himself. He did not call after me. He did not follow. For the first time since everything began, I felt something close to freedom. Seeing William in that cafe, broken, trembling, stripped of every illusion he once clung to, should have shaken me. Months earlier, it would have shattered me. But now it only clarified something I had been slowly realizing. I wasn't his home anymore, and he wasn't mine. I walked away from him that day with a strange calm in my chest. Not triumph, not vindication, just clarity. A quiet understanding that whatever version of us we had tried to build no longer existed. My sister and I left the cafe, and she didn't ask a single question until we were already back in my apartment. You okay? She finally asked. Yeah, I said, I actually am. Days passed. Then a week? I expected the quiet to last, to stretch out like a smooth new chapter. I expected William to retreat, maybe lick his wounds, maybe accept that I had finally closed the door he kept pushing open with apologies that came too late. But people rarely accept endings they don't control. A few days after the cafe, he showed up again with 3 short, fragile messages. Cynthia, please. I shouldn't have said all the things I said. Can we just talk one more time? I didn't respond. 2 more days passed before he tried again. Cynthia, please, I just need closure. I feel like you're the only person who understands me. That one made me pause, not because it was touching, but because it was revealing. William hadn't changed. Even now, he wasn't looking for accountability. He was looking for shelter, for rescue, for the emotional stability I used to offer him without hesitation. He had never loved me for who I was. He had loved me for what I provided, and I refused to be that person again. 3 weeks later, our paths crossed again, this time entirely by accident. I was in the grocery store pushing a cart toward the checkout. I wasn't thinking about him. I wasn't thinking about the past at all. I was trying to decide between two brands of almond milk when I heard someone say my name. Cynthia. I turned. It was him. William stood in the line 2 rows ahead of me. His cart held nothing but instant ramen energy drinks and cheap frozen meals food for someone who had stopped trying to take care of himself. He looked thinner, the hollows under his eyes darker than before. His clothes hung loosely as though he'd lost weight quickly and without trying. He froze when he saw me. Hey, he said quietly, almost ashamed. Can we talk? I kept my voice even. I'm not sure there's anything left to talk about. He swallowed, glancing down at the items in his cart. Things have been hard, he murmured. I lost my apartment. And Lena and I, well, that fell apart fast. I thought we were building something, but she... He stopped himself, maybe realizing it didn't matter anymore. That's not your problem, he finished weakly. I nodded. I'm sorry you're going through that. Are you? He asked, searching my face for something. Pity, anger, nostalgia, anything. I am, I said truthfully, but it doesn't change anything. His eyes glistened. I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm desperate. Is your company hiring? I need a place to start over. Maybe you could put in a word? The old version of me, soft, hopeful, eager to care, would have bent over backward to help him. That Cynthia no longer existed. I don't think that would be appropriate, I said gently but firmly. He inhaled, sharply wounded. Right, of course. Stupid of me to ask. I didn't say that. No, he whispered. But you didn't have to. The cashier called him forward. He paid quickly, then walked past me without looking up. That night I didn't replay the moment. I didn't spiral. I didn't cry. I simply went to sleep. A month after the grocery store encounter, I came home from work and saw someone sitting on the bench outside my apartment building. My heart tightened, not in longing, but in recognition. William. He rose when he saw me thinner still, his hands trembling slightly. His clothes were wrinkled and his hair tousled in a way that wasn't deliberate. It was the look of someone who hadn't been sleeping. Cynthia, he said, voice cracking, please don't walk away. I let out a slow breath. What do you want, William? He stepped closer, desperation radiating from him. Just to explain. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But after Caleb, I stopped him with a raised hand. Caleb. He flinched. Lena's new guy. Or the guy she was with while she said she wanted me. I nodded once. Go on. He looked down, rubbing at his face like he could wipe the regret off it. I thought Lena made me feel alive. She said I was fun, exciting, different. She made me feel wanted in ways I didn't realize I craved. And I asked not out of insecurity, but for truth. He swallowed. You did. But it was different. With you, I felt safe. And I convinced myself safety meant boredom. My chest tightened, but not from pain, from clarity. I thought I wanted freedom, he continued, his voice strained. But all I wanted was to do whatever I wanted without being held accountable. Lena let me be selfish. And when she got bored of that version of me, she tossed me out like garbage. I nodded. You chose chaos and called it passion. He exhaled, defeated. Yes. So why are you here now? I asked. He lifted his eyes to mine, full of something raw and pleading. Because I have nothing left. And because I finally understand what I threw away. And what was that, William? You, he whispered. You were the only person who ever made me feel enough. The words should have softened me. They didn't. He took a step closer. Do you miss me at all? I looked him directly in the eye. No. I miss who I thought you were, but that person doesn't exist. He inhaled sharply, like the air had been punched from his lungs. I can be that person again. I just need another chance. No, I said softly. His face twisted. Cynthia, please. I'm barely surviving. My parents won't help me. Lena ruined my reputation at work. I have nowhere to go. You already had more chances than I should have given, I said. You didn't want love. You wanted control, and when you lost it, you called it freedom. He stared at me, his expression collapsing into something hollow and bitter. So that's it, after everything we had. We didn't have anything, I replied quietly. You just had me, and you threw that away. His jaw trembled. Finally, he whispered, I hate you. I didn't flinch. Maybe. But at least now, you finally feel something real. I walked past him toward the entrance. He didn't call after me. He didn't follow. He just stood there trembling in the night air as the door closed behind me. For the first time, I understood that closure wasn't something someone gave to you. It was something you claimed. William did not show up at my building again after that night. Not the next day, not the next week, not even in the shallow, desperate way of a man hoping I might slip and let him back in. For the first time since our separation, the silence didn't feel tense or unfinished. It felt earned. It felt final. You can only be shattered by someone so many times before you stop offering them pieces of yourself to break. Life moved forward gently but firmly. On the weekends, I visited my sister, caught up with friends I had unintentionally neglected during my relationship with William, and filled my apartment with small things that felt like me. Soft lamps, eucalyptus candles, stacks of books that had been pushed aside when I was too drained to read. Each small step rebuilt the version of Cynthia I used to know. Work flourished too. The more I poured myself into my new role, the more confident I became in my abilities. My team relied on me. Upper management noticed my initiative. I finally occupied space without apologizing for it. Peace didn't feel fragile anymore. It felt deserved. 2 months passed. One afternoon, I went to a coffee shop near my office to catch up with a mutual friend from college, someone who had known both William and me for years. She hesitated before lowering her voice. "I didn't want to bring this up," she said, "but you should know William isn't doing well." I sipped my coffee calmly. "In what way?" "He's spiraling. He doesn't have a stable job anymore. His family cut off support. He's been couch surfing. He barely looks like himself." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said honestly. "You don't need to feel guilty," she added gently. "None of this is your fault." "I know." And I did, truly. There's a strange clarity that comes after deep heartbreak, a moment when you finally understand that someone else's destruction is not your responsibility and their downfall is not your burden. William was unraveling because of choices he made long before he ever chose to leave me. A few weeks later, I was walking home from work when my phone buzzed. It was Josh, the same mutual friend who had texted me when William had a meltdown at the bar. Heard William moved back in with his parents. Apparently things got really bad. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Thanks for letting me know. I hope he figures things out." And I meant every word. Not because I wanted him back. Not because I felt responsible. But because I no longer needed his suffering to validate my healing. His life and mine had finally diverged for good. Then spring arrived. Soft breezes, warm afternoons, longer days that made everything feel possible again. I began hiking on weekends, rediscovering pieces of myself I had neglected. I joined a local volunteering group at a community center. I went to brunch with friends I had lost touch with. I learned to enjoy silence without associating it with fear. And then unexpectedly, I met someone new. Her name was Claire Hollis, an accountant from a company 2 floors below mine. We met in line at a coffee shop when she complimented my earrings. A casual comment turned into a conversation, and conversation turned into coffee. And coffee turned into us talking for 3 hours, like we had known each other longer than a few minutes. Claire was nothing like William. Where he was defensive, she was patient. Where he was evasive, she was honest. Where he made me feel heavy, she made me feel light. When she said she would call, she called. When she made plans, she showed up. When I asked about her day, she told the truth, simple, direct, unfiltered by ego or manipulation. It was shocking how easy it was to feel seen again. Not adored, not needed, just seen. One Saturday, Claire and I were hiking a trail just outside the city. The sun filtered through the trees, the air smelled like pine and earth, and the quiet between us felt comfortable. At one point, she asked, "Do you ever think about him, William?" Sometimes I admitted, but not the way I used to. "What changed?" she asked gently. I thought for a moment, placing my hand on a tree trunk, grounding myself in the present. "I stopped seeing him as someone I lost," I said, "and started seeing him as someone I escaped." Claire smiled, soft and understanding. "Good. You deserve better than someone who made you feel small." "I know," I said. "I really do." And for the first time, I believed it with my whole heart. That night, we curled up on my couch blankets tangled over us as a movie played quietly in the background. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. I hesitated before opening it. The message was long, fragmented, clearly written through someone else's exhaustion. "Cynthia, I saw on Instagram that you're seeing someone. She looks really nice. I'm happy for you. I mean it. I know I don't have the right to say this, but I hope you're happy. You deserve it. I'm sorry for everything. I really am." I stared at the message for a long moment, not with anger, not with pity, not with longing, just quiet understanding. William had finally said the words I once begged him to say, and I no longer needed them. I deleted the message. Claire glanced over. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said, placing my phone face down. "Just someone from the past." "Want to talk about it?" she asked. "No," I said, softly smiling as I leaned back into her shoulder. "I'm good." And I was. Because somewhere along the way, my heart had stopped waiting for closure from someone who could never give it. My life was no longer tied to William's unraveling or his regrets. His apologies weren't keys to any door I needed to open. The real closure was simple. I no longer cared whether he came back. And that was the freedom I had been searching for all along. If someone had told me months earlier that freedom wouldn't arrive with fireworks, that it wouldn't be loud or dramatic or wrapped in some perfect apology, I wouldn't have believed them. I used to think closure came from answers, from explanations, from finally hearing the words, "I'm sorry," delivered the way I always imagined. But standing in the life I had built, one defined by peace, honesty, and mutual respect, I understood something much simpler. Closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you create. Spring melted into early summer. My apartment felt lived in now, no longer a temporary refuge, but a home shaped entirely by my own hands. I filled it with sunlight and plants and art prints I'd always wanted but never bought. I worked with focus and joy, not desperation. I texted my sister throughout the week, planned weekend activities with friends, and found myself laughing without a shadow attached. With Claire, everything unfolded gently. No push, no urgency, no games. If she didn't understand something, she asked. If she needed space, she communicated it. If she cared, she said so plainly, without duplicity or fear. Her presence didn't overwhelm my life. It wove into it. One warm Sunday morning, as we ate breakfast on my balcony, Claire turned to me and said, "You seem lighter these days." "I feel lighter," I replied, smiling, like I finally let go of something I didn't realize I was carrying. She reached across the table and brushed her fingers against mine, not possessively, not urgently, just a quiet reassurance. "You deserve this," she murmured. And I knew she meant not just the moment, but all of it: peace, stability, and the gentle certainty of being chosen without manipulation or doubt. A few weeks later, I was on my way home from work when my phone buzzed again. Another message from an unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something made me check this one. "Cynthia, I wanted to say thank you for everything you did for me when we were together. I know I never appreciated it. I'm working on myself now, going to therapy, trying to fix the things I broke before I hurt anyone else again. I'm sorry for all of it. I hope you're happy." After reading it, I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel tempted to respond. I simply sat down on a bench outside my building, watching the sky shift through a dozen shades of blue. The message felt like a soft breeze brushing past a momentary reminder of a person I used to know nothing more. William was trying to grow. That was good. It mattered. But it didn't change the shape of my life anymore. I deleted the message, and this time it truly felt like closure, not because he finally apologized, but because his words no longer tugged at any wound inside me. Several days later, I was at the community center helping organize supplies when my sister texted me. "Saw William's mom at the store today. He moved back in with them. Seems like he's keeping his head down and rebuilding. Thought you'd want to know." I paused, reading the message twice. Not out of worry, out of finality. Because now his life continuing no longer felt tied to mine, no longer felt like a ghost drifting behind me. I typed back, "Thanks for telling me. I hope he figures everything out." And I meant it, not out of longing, not out of guilt, but because wishing someone well takes nothing from you once you're healed. Months passed quietly. My days filled with work hikes, late-night movie marathons, with Claire, warm dinners, with friends, and long phone calls with my sister that made us laugh until we could barely breathe. I even started taking a beginner's pottery class, something I'd always been curious about, but never had the emotional space to try. Peace wasn't a moment, it was a habit, a choice, a life built intentionally after surviving chaos. One weekend, Claire and I took a short trip to the coast. We walked along the shoreline, the waves cool against our ankles, the sky a brilliant stretch of pale gold. She paused at one point, gazing out at the water. "You ever think about him?" she asked. Not jealous, not fearful, just curious. Sometimes I answered honestly, but not the way you might think. "How do you think about him now?" I ran my fingers through the tide, watching the water ripple. As a lesson, I said, "Someone who showed me exactly what I would never tolerate again. Someone who taught me what love is supposed to feel like by showing me what it isn't." She nodded softly. "That makes sense. And I don't regret it," I added. "Not because it was good, but because I survived it, and I'm better now. Stronger, more myself." She squeezed my hand. "I'm glad you made it out." I looked at her steadiness, her kindness, the way her eyes softened when she spoke to me, and I felt a warm certainty settle in my chest. "I'm glad too," I said. Later that night, back in the hotel room, I stood by the window while Claire slept, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. My phone buzzed once, a notification from Instagram, someone liking a photo of me and Claire from earlier that day. And then it hit me. William wasn't in my mind anymore, not in my heart, not in the corners of my memory where pain likes to hide. He wasn't a wound. He wasn't even a shadow. He was simply a chapter closed, completed, replaced by a life that fit me better than anything I had clung to before. Freedom wasn't revenge or karmic justice or watching someone fall apart. Freedom was this: a quiet night, a gentle breath, a future that looked nothing like the past, a heart that beat peacefully, a life finally belonging to me. And as I turned away from the window and slipped back into bed beside Claire, I understood the simplest truth, the one I had fought hardest to learn.